this? Like, what did you do before this? Let's do that first. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I studied finance at University of South Carolina. So I moved up to Charlotte after school because it's a pretty big banking town. So got into real estate finance and did that for about 12 years before this.
What made you shift into this market in particular?
Well, I'd always been passionate about fitness. I've been involved in fitness and sports for pretty much my entire life. And I wanted to create a blog. I actually wanted to create a Microsoft Excel blog and never took off. And I wasn't very content, I guess you could say, with my job. I was working very, very long hours, got kids on the way, and kind of went through a career crisis, I guess you could call it. And just realized that I wanted to try something a little bit different. Knew that I was passionate about fitness and specifically gym equipment, and figured why not start a blog about that.
Was there any other community or anything like that you were getting into before this, or was it just straight into like the garage gym world?
It was as straight as you could get into it.
Really?
My wife was in the hospital about to give labor, and I told her that I was going to start a blog about gym equipment, and she about slapped me.
I was going to say, the perfect time to just discuss that. Yeah, 100%. That's so funny. Well, with us being William Strength, I feel like, we've been in the industry forever. Now, Cam's kind of taken over a little bit of what Scott used to do. So now I work with him a lot. And, well, of course, we still work with Scott. But Cam has coined the phrase that our equipment's quality is undeniable. You'll see that we've kind of changed our marketing just a hair to have that more in the background. Was there any questions you wanted to ask when it came to our equipment or anything like that?
Nothing specific about your equipment other than I would love to hear maybe your thoughts about the evolution of the industry and if you guys are seeing a bigger footprint for Williams in the home gym space, or if your focus is still going to be primarily facilities.
See, to me, I don't think those are separate things anymore. I think the industry has evolved to the degree where what you get in a professional install and what you get in the home are somewhat seamless. The only things that seem to be changing is footprint and size of the equipment itself. But the methodology and the training protocols are now kind of one-to-one, right? Like what we're seeing now is with the predominance of powerlifting, with the predominance of bodybuilding becoming more and more ubiquitous in the home, we're seeing a lot of training protocols that are actually more akin to starting sports protocols now being trained more than anything else. Now, there's still obviously huge delineation between the two, but because the training is now similar, the equipment is also similar. Back when bodybuilding was huge, everybody kind of thought that they had to have that Globo gym setup of machine, and very, very little power, actual power rack work, right? Now we're starting to see that that's sort of shifting. So I think it's both, anytime, because here's the thing for me, it physically is both, because anytime I'm learning how to do new laser cutouts or new custom pieces, what I do is I experiment with the installs, right? The hypothetical pieces that I think would belong in the home gym first start out at installs because they have the billing, they have the capability to kind of fund that experimentation, and then we build it and then we bring it to the home when it's fully perfect.
Yeah. Do you see maybe an evolution in how you're actually designing the equipment? Like, do you see more modularity being a more sort of pressing topic for people and trying to maximize space for what they have?
Yeah, it's kind of 50-50, right? Because modularity is super important, and obviously having a smaller footprint in the gym when it comes to a home gym or a garage gym is ideal. But what's kind of strange for us, and I think we're kind of one of the only outliers, well, I don't want to say the only, but a few outliers within the industry. There's things that we make as cumbersome and as non-space saving as it is, that I think people like because there is a classic look to it, a classic design to it. Now, I don't want to say that across the board because obviously we do make equipment that's streamlined for space saving. But there are times when people will look at, let's say, a signature lat tower, which is an insanely huge piece, and say, that's exactly what I've been looking for. Nobody makes that anymore, So it's kind of 50-50.
What would you say is if you could pick maybe one or however many you want, pieces of equipment that Williams manufactures that you could put your stamp on and say, this is what makes us different, and this is what makes us Williams String.
It's got to be anything with the signature name attached to it is probably what makes us considerably different. Those are the pieces that I would say are, because those are the pieces that are sort of timeless too, and quite literally timeless in the sense that I still see signature racks from installs 15 years ago still being sold on the used market because they're just built with 7-gauge steel. They're ginormous, right? And that's not just the racks. That's also the machines, you know?
And you got your signature bench, you got the signature flat towers, and you got a whole lineup that's basically signature series. Yeah.
I would say that probably the signature stuff is the pieces that have, they're also the ones that have the most intensive customizable options. They're also the easiest ones to kind of personalize. So that's also a big part of why they are kind of our signature line.
You know, speaking of customization, we're talking right now on the new custom cart that you guys just built for me.
Yeah, which will be posted probably for the thumbnail, the video, and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. It's beautiful. But I've noticed that you guys are doing a lot more of this type of work. Is this something that you guys have really sort of kind of getting more into over the last couple of years? I mean, obviously you've been doing it for a while, but I feel like it's more elevated as it was even a few years ago.
So coming from, I've been in the industry for quite a bit, right? I've worked for different companies before too. So the thing about custom work that's difficult is that a lot of the times you have a committee kind of building it. And it's impossible to do that way because, like, let's look at an install, for example. With an install, it's really difficult, specifically if your school doesn't have like a branding guideline, which most high schools don't, right? It's hard for everybody to know what they're going to go with as far as a logo goes, which one they're going to use, and then, of course, coordinating with a bunch of people on how to do it. Our company has gotten to the point where we have our kind of main players in mind that anytime that a custom job like this comes down. So it's just streamlined and really, really quick. We have a lot of disadvantages coming from I don't want to say a lot, but we have a few disadvantages coming from kind of a mom and pop shop. But one of the greatest advantages that we have is that we can kind of marshal the team necessary to build out something from start to finish.
Yeah. I know what my favorite install that I've seen from you guys. I'm curious if it's the same as yours. So why don't you go first? What's your favorite install that you've done so far?
See, it's difficult because there's like a lot of really big upcoming theoretical jobs that are like night and day.
Only ones that you've done so far.
The ones that we've done so far, Gaffney's really good. Gaffney High School was really good. It's probably one of the best because of, it's hard to talk about because what Gaffney has was experimental when I first started. Now it's standardized. So for me, I'm more excited about the experimental stuff that we're kind of coming up with now.
Right.
But I'd say Gaffney High School is up there.
Okay.
Wake Forest is another big one.
Yeah.
Those jobs were really good. But now there's so much cool stuff coming up on the horizon that no one has ever done before.
Yeah. Gaffney was mine. Easily my favorite that I've seen from you guys. Just because, like, when you look at especially like a high school room, for me, seeing that one was particularly impactful. Like colleges, NFL rooms, etc. Yeah, they've all got some pretty awesome stuff. But to see that at a high school level, it was like almost shocking.
Yeah, our secondary motto has always kind of been strength is for everybody. There's no real. Obviously, investing in college students and stuff is incredibly important. But if you're not willing to at least give that level of equipment to the younger ones that really need to learn how to use all this equipment beforehand, I mean, you're not really doing your due diligence as like an equipment company, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, like, for example, we know that 1-inch hole racks are sort of standardized across the board, right? It would be strange to have a kid come from using, like, let's just say machines and then having to go into a weight room and having to learn all that himself. At the college level. You wouldn't want that, right? So kind of streamlining that learning process is super important to us. But yeah, again, strength is for everybody. I mean, even with like our, even with like jobs that are less, I guess, like financially backed, right? Like the smaller jobs, we make sure that they at least get some type of standardized level of equipment as well as treatment. And, for us, because I feel like a lot of companies have their incredibly high-end line really well built out, and then everything else is sort of an afterthought. Well, we always come at them with like, well, if you can't do laser cut, then we can do vinyl. If you can't do this, then we can do this, because there's always a substitute that'll fit your price line, right? Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. What would be your favorite sort of piece of equipment to train with that Williams makes? Like, what's your go-to piece if you had to pick one?
That's difficult because I feel like the more you train, the less you have a favorite piece of equipment, because the more you train, the more diverse your training protocols get, right? I really like our quick adjustable monos because I'm a big bencher. I like to bench a lot. So that is perfect to help because I have a left forearm injury as well as a little bit of a shoulder injury. That basically just completely negates that. And then, of course, the beauty of those is that when I'm ready to squat, I just push them out the way.
Right. Yeah. I think the monolift is something that I love and hate. I love it for bench for the handoff reasons and not having to put any additional stress on the shoulder, etc. But I can't stand it for squats. At least a rack mounted mono.
And I agree. The reality is that a traditional monolift is supposed to have incredible high level of clearance so that you don't have to walk out of weight. Having to walk out of weight, even if it's one step, sort of defeats the purpose. But that said, monolifts are also sort of difficult if you're somebody who switches from high to low bar constantly, or if you're somebody who has to have both of those training protocols, because we're kind of taught to press our back up against the bar before we figure out good positioning. Can't do that with a mono because it moves, right? But it's still probably one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, I use mine a lot. But as you can see on my rack, I've got it permanently set up in the bench position. I don't even bother with it, moving it for squats. I don't even squat on that back upright. Yeah. What questions do you have for me?
I guess I kind of have the similar questions to what you asked before. What's your thoughts as far as the industry and where it's at currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's been a paradigm shift in this industry, largely due to COVID. So a lot of people had to, out of necessity, invest in equipment for their home gyms just so they could maintain some level of fitness during quarantine. And I'm not sure that that's really going to revert back, at least at the same level that it was prior. So people who invested in home gym equipment, I don't think are going to divest their home gyms and sell off and flock back to the commercial gyms anytime soon. In fact, I see people expanding on it because now they know that they can still maintain their fitness levels at home. They can save a lot of time. They can get their kids involved and things like that. So as we were talking about at lunch too, like this custom cart that you guys built for me, like there's a lot more of that, I think, where people are investing even more money to create thematic experiences in their home that's cohesive with maybe a specific color scheme or a design or a logo. And it's like this new flex for people. And I don't see it going really anywhere anytime soon. So
to kind of jump into the first part of what you said, what we're noticing on our end when it comes to actual commercial facilities, right, is that gyms are still happening now. The only difference is that gyms are specializing way more than they used to. So now instead of having a ton of gyms that are, 70% cardio, 10% weightlifting, and then let's say, 20% machines, it's all changing, right? I think what's going to start happening is that boutique gyms or gyms that are specifically for a principal or whatever might get bigger. And then gyms that are more just your cardio stations, those are going to start disappearing more and more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. As far as like the personalization part of it, I mean, that's one of my favorite parts because I get to have my hands in so many different, I guess, identities as well as just stories. A lot of the times, just some of my favorite parts of working is building something out for somebody else. Like, let's say a husband to a wife or vice versa. And they basically tell me a story on what it is that they like, why they like it, and stuff. So in a weird way, even though all I'm doing is building out products, I feel like I'm learning about people and knowing them more than just random people off the street,
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's an aspect of it that I don't think that I've ever really thought about. you hear a lot of that with like tattoo artists, right? You get a
You're
lot
right,
of like
yeah.
the life stories for tattoo artists, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that they hear all sorts of stuff. Never really thought about it from a strength art perspective. But
Yeah. It's funny too, because it's like, I feel like the one market where you would think artistry doesn't really intersect, but if you look at the history of strength equipment, it's always been there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of renders and things like that for Williams, and I've seen several of them that you put together. They're probably at the top for me in terms of presentation and just like thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
What did you call them? The light, like not artifacts, but the streaming like light.
Oh yeah, like God rays and stuff like that.
It's just like really impressive and kind of immerses the viewer into this experience.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and that's kind of a recent development. I think render tech and all that kind of stuff is becoming so much more easier to get into now and a little bit more ubiquitous. But it is one of those things where a lot of people kind of, what's the old phrase? Run through the forest, but you miss the trees kind of thing, where it's like a lot of people, and again, it helps because I've been in the industry forever, but a lot of people will make a room look great, but not necessarily the equipment to look great or what it should look like, right?
Right.
So it is one of those things where it's like you do kind of have to have a art director's ability when you build out one of those. Not to mention also like the reason why those are so difficult. I talked about this earlier, but usually multiple people have to touch it, right? With renders, it's just me and him.
Right.
Him being Andrew, who's also in the room with us managing the audio. I just realized I pointed, but they won't know who that is. But yeah, so basically between the two of us, we do pretty much every single render. So when you're getting something built out from us, just know that it's under one person who's going to be able to make changes on the fly, as well as just know exactly what you want, because you're not talking to multiple people.
Right.
And also we train, right?
Sure.
That's a huge component of it that I think a lot of companies don't have. Like a lot of companies will still build their renders in the same way that a gym is built. Machines at 4-foot intervals, right? 4 to 6 foot intervals. Yeah, that's great if you're building like a Gold's Gym.
Right.
But when you're building an actual performance institute, you need space. You need to make sure that that coach's understanding of that room and how that's going to affect training actually is at play.
Right.
And you'd be amazed how many times that I get rooms from other people and it just doesn't look like somebody who trains built it.
Yeah. Well, it's much more purpose driven and not so much just stamped out.
Right. Yeah.
Based on some antiquated methodology that the lobby desk should go here, the cardio should go here and face the windows. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And again, we have gyms that are like that, sure, because we also do like commercial facilities. And if that's what you're after, that's what you're after. But the reality is that when you're building a room, you are building a device for that coach to train their kids as best as possible. And if you're not up to that standard, then, I mean, I just don't think this is what you should be doing.
Yeah. Have you noticed, I'm sure you have, but a lot of positive feedback from coaches based on how you program a room, and then maybe how that compares to, if they even share it, some of the programming that they've received schematically or whatnot, in terms of maybe some other companies that have built them some concepts.
Yeah, and that's kind of the dirty secret, is that when you build out a concept, it definitely says don't share on the bottom in the fine print, but it will be shared. That's just the reality of the situation, right? Everybody wants 3 quotes, right? That's like the old, yeah. For us, I think the biggest thing as far as, it's funny because, again, the majority of our sales staff are coaches, right? Like my director of sales is David Abernathy, who was the strength coach for Clemson. So a lot of the times when these guys are building rooms, they're not approaching it from a salesman perspective, right? They're approaching it more from a coach's perspective. The salesman part kind of sort of happens secondary, right? Once they figure it out. So with that in mind, we always get testimony that the rooms are set up for actual movement. One of the things that makes it so hard for this industry is that training protocol and methodology changes all the time. What's considered the most ideal changes day to day, right? So it is one of those things where you do have to sort of keep up with all that and make sure that, you are building a room that makes sense for them. Basic protocol stuff is going to be the same usually across the board, but that's not always the case either. For example, actually, to be honest with you, the majority of the testimony we get are always for the tsunami bar. it's always praise for the Tsunami bar. Without going too heavy into like the logistics of what makes that Tsunami bar different, one of the main reasons is because it auto regulates. A lot of these kids are training where there's one coach for hundreds of them, right? The most ideal way to coach is one coach per student, but that's an impossibility. So what you need is a device that auto regulates like the Tsunami bar, so that a coach doesn't have to keep walking down and going, hey, deload. Hey, deload. Hey, are you on your third set? Deload. So that's kind of been a big factor for us. A lot of coaches will say, oh, since we stopped, or since we used the steel bar less and started using the Tsunami bar more, not only are injuries going down, but their performance on the field is increasing, right? And that bar, the reason why it's so impactful is just because there's a lot of stuff that you can do that's sports specific that you just can't do with a traditional steel barbell. And that's really all it is. It's not something that's replacing the steel barbell or anything like that. It's just another tool in your tool.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a tool that I've really wanted to try. I haven't yet. Obviously, I've got the Tsunami lat bar and I've got the multi-grip bar that I use a fair amount, but to actually use the full length barbell version of the Tsunami bar would be really cool.
Now we're going to have to get you a customized Tsunami bar, huh? Okay. Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, I do all that anyway. So yeah. I would say you start with that speed bar. That speed bar might be the only one that you need actually, because, again, the barbell is the Tsunami bar. What we're starting to realize is it's more oscillation intensive, the training. If you're not using the bar with oscillation in mind, if you're using it at a decelerated pace, you're kind of just using it as a camber bar. Right. So if you decide to go down that route, just let me know and I'll get you that speed bar and you can test it out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So I'm curious too, with your like facility build outs, is there like a ratio where maybe there's a larger portion of your build outs are full blown like initial concepts, or are they coming into an existing facility and maybe starting over? Like, is it a brand new build?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, or is it like replacing something that's already existing?
You know what? Believe it or not, it's evenly split. It's weird because where I worked previously wasn't like that, but now there are so many buildings that are not even built that are still in the conceptual phase where they want to figure out how much space they need for a weight room, and then they go with us eventually when it's built. And then there are a lot of projects where the coach just left. We have all this Nebula equipment. We want it out, put your stuff in. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, because I feel like that's like the prime time for a replacement, right? Where it's where a coach leaves or gets fired or whatever, and the next coach wants something a little bit different. Do you know, is there like a percentage of coaches who choose, if their budget allows, the program's budget allows, chooses to keep existing or upgrade to their sort of liking and maybe vision?
It really depends on the level. You want to, if we're going into a collegiate room, everything must go, right? We take everything out and then put new stuff in. Now there's a little bit of ego in there too, obviously, because it is something that was set up for the man previous. So they want something tailored to themselves. Nobody wants to buy a custom suit for someone else, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of that. But when it comes to like the high school level, most of the time, it's all practicality. So if there's pieces that they want to keep, they keep it. If there's pieces that they want to replace, they replace it. A lot of the times what always happens is we'll show them a room and say, because that's another thing too. Our methodology, our Speed Force Max methodology, which is the name of the bars as well, right? We have Speed Force Max. The reason we went with that is because each room has to be set to be used in 3 different configurations, whether you realize it or not. That's why we always recommend getting turf down the middle. That's why we recommend having the racks apart, having a command strip the coach can go down, things like that. And it's crazy how, as simple as that sounds when I read it out to you or say it to you, some companies just don't understand. They're still so active about making sure there's all spaces utilized. And the reality is that sports are movement based. You need to have real estate there for the movement. And that means having a place that doesn't have equipment, And it's crazy that, again, they don't understand that. But yeah, sorry, that was kind of a loaded answer too.
No, it answered it perfectly.
I had kind of a weird loaded question for you regarding the industry.
Yeah.
Do you think the direction we're headed is good?
In terms of equipment?
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I think for the consumer, the more options, the better at various price points. So I'm very optimistic about some of the innovation that I'm seeing. I mean, obviously there's still, this sort of copycat mentality when some things, with some pieces of equipment. I mean, there's only so many things you can do with certain pieces of equipment, but to the extent companies like Williams and others can maybe evolve and come up with an interesting twist on something, I think that's always good for the consumer. And I think the consumers appreciate that, and they appreciate the fact that companies listen and that they're constantly evolving. So yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction for sure. And I'm probably more excited than I've ever been.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm definitely excited about like the new, cause I see it all the time now. It's crazy how much stuff I'm seeing from like the European market, like the interesting equipment that's coming out now. But more or less, I get a little bit concerned because now I feel like the monopolies are just getting bigger. I feel like companies are getting huge, giant revenue bases, and there's really not an incentive to do more, right? I've said this before, to a lot of people, but there's a lot of companies out there that make more money by keeping the status quo than by, changing and adding on to new pieces and building out new things. Do you feel like you see that, or is that not?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I felt like, obviously during COVID, there was almost a race to the bottom, I guess you could say. A lot of value seekers, things like that. And some of the companies really benefited from that. But I think longer term, I think that it will really help certain companies who can demonstrate that they are willing to evolve and sort of put their neck out there a little bit and, try to do something a little bit differently.
It's funny because for me, it's like this equipment world now is so polished. It's like, I mean, literally like it's stainless steel now.
Yeah.
But it's so funny coming into it how like this used to just be a business full of crazy yahoos that would make whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's it called? I love that anecdote of Arthur, I can't remember his name. The guy who built out, all the stuff for Nautilus, Arthur Jones, right? Yep. And how he used to have just the Colorado experiment, the raising the alligators to be giant as possible. Just Batman villains used to run this industry. That's really what it was at one point. But I don't know, something about that. I feel like one thing I really like about William Strength is that kind of weird trashiness is still sort of our brand too. Like, I mean, for us, again, it's so funny because a guy from California came down to come look at one of the reverse hybrids, right? He had like a meeting here, in South Carolina for some reason. I don't know why his department would make a meet in like South Carolina, just bumfuck nowhere, right? Yeah. But, he came in and he was just like, wow, your showroom, it's just like, he didn't say this, but I could sort of tell he's like, damn, this is just a workshop. Yeah. This is not like a dealership. This is just a place where people just build. Cause I was like, here's a signature rack. Oh, it's missing pieces because we harvested it for this. Here's whatever. Oh, sorry. It's missing stuff because we harvested it for this. And it's just crazy how like, I don't know. I kind of like that idea. I like that relatability, that humanness to just making cool shit. That's really all it is, Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, was there anything else you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of answered it, but what's your vision for the next 5 years for the equipment space and, and maybe for William Strength?
So to the fans out there who love us but just hate dealing with us from a digital side, the website is coming.
Are you sure about that?
Hopefully, yeah, I was going to say, hopefully that's not on my tombstone, when I'm gone. But the website is coming. Our biggest thing, I think, is that we really want to build every single department the same way that the R&D department and things like that are built, where I feel like we were such big industry leaders. And I mean, debatably we were, right? Because like we've been around for like 20 years and we've done pieces that other people have just started to build more recently now. Like I don't want to name names, but like, again, like you look at our competition bench and you look at our competitors' competition bench and you realize, oh, we've been doing that since 1990.
Yeah.
Been building it that way. And now all these other companies are sort of starting up and, in some cases being inspired and in worst cases just straight up copying the design and doing really well for themselves. Well, since we are undeniably one of the industry leaders, I want our pedigree to match that when it comes to our digital experience, when it comes to our sales experience, all of it. It's going to be tough to get there, but just understand that the reason why it is built out that way is because every single piece of extra revenue we had, every single piece of extra we had, we put into the equipment. And that's always been the case, So I just want the rest of the company to be exemplified the same way that our equipment is exemplified.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm curious, and maybe this is a loaded question too, but
oh, dude, ask all the loaded questions. Those are the ones I actually like.
Yeah, okay.
Because I have to think.
Let's say you get the website up and running, and you've got this now retail component. You throw it up on Instagram, whatever. A few people share it. All of a sudden, you get a bunch of traffic coming in and a bunch of sales. How does Williams? Is it equipped to handle all that volume right up front, or do you have to kind of pivot?
I'm going to tell you guys right now, we are not even remotely ready to handle that level of, but once it's there, obviously it'll be different. But, that's why it's having to be in such little tiny piecemeals, because we're going to have to develop it piece by piece. I feel like a lot of our competitors, what they'll do is they'll just basically hire out somebody to build a website, give them a list of equipment and say, go at it, right? We won't be able to do that. We'll have to do it phase by phase. Phase 1 will be your most sought out for equipment, phase 2, phase 3, and then there'll just be some stuff that'll always be on the catalog on the back end. Because we make and again, most people don't notice, but we make thousands of products, literally thousands. I can't remember exactly last time. I think Mike told me that we are close to 10,000 products,
Wow.
Just because every single piece that we make is not publicized, so.
I think that makes a lot of sense with the phasing it in. The last thing you want to do is get bad reputation for not being able to fulfill quickly. And I think that's been one of the biggest pain points for a lot of companies over the last couple of years through COVID and everything, is extremely long lead times, sort of bottlenecks, and then especially on the customer service side. So to the extent that you can avoid that and phase it in and understand demand and all that, I think it makes total sense.
Yeah, we were actually, I don't want to say incredibly fortunate because it was deliberate, but because all of our stuff is made in South Carolina, our timelines have been really good in comparison to other people. The international shipping lines have been a mess. Well, we just didn't have to deal with that for the most part, so that's been good.
No, that's definitely good. And South Carolina is awesome.
There's not a lot, but if you guys want to come see some crazy industry, it's there. Also, debatably, the hub of strength is South Carolina. We're there. Donnie Thompson's there. Donnie Thompson's literally like 2 minutes from our facility. Sornex is there begrudgingly. There's a lot of stuff there.
And Garage Gym Lab is there too.
Garage Gym Lab is there too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in the South that I think people kind of overlook. But strength is definitely, that's the home, Yeah.
Well, I know I need to make a visit down to you guys, and we'll have to film some content. Maybe we'll do a walkthrough of Williams Strength, give the viewers and fans a little appetite for what you guys are doing and a little inside look.
Yeah. We're actually building out a new facility there too.
Nice.
An actual showroom. Now, I don't know how many of those pieces will be harvested, but
yeah. Well, no, you were at one point, I guess maybe it's put on the back burner, but the Garage Gym showroom, is that still a thing?
It's still a thing that we are sort of building out. Like, you can still do business there, but we were not prepared to deal with the level of installs and how intimate they're going to be. I think that we had when I first came in. We literally exploded kind of overnight in that area just because, like I said before, with our company, we were so adamant about equipment first, everything else second. Our technology wing was just way behind. So as soon as we brought the ability to make renders, as soon as you gave us teeth to be competitive, everything else kind of had to be put on the back burner to do that. Now, will we have a Garage Gym store? 100%. Is Scott and Cam still till this day making equipment variations that are more home friendly? Still 100% they are. And we'll have more of that kind of built out in the future. But like I said, right now we're still just focusing on all the cool installs that you're going to see in the South, as well as that new showroom,
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the experimental stuff come to life. And I think it's exciting. And I think people are going to be looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think my thing right now is that I'm slowly kind of moving into more R&D stuff too. So that's kind of been fun.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you like that like equally as much? You like it more or less than doing like the artistic renders?
I like
and things?
it. I like it a lot because I'm kind of a pretentious person. So
I know what you were about to say because I can read your lips.
Yeah. So I get that's funny. So like when I build out something, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I did that. You know what I mean? So it's like, but yeah, it's nice. More than anything, I think it's a different kind of approach with art-based stuff. There is no limit. With engineering or R&D stuff, the limit is what you subvert, right? It's what you kind of, the limit is what you have to play against. So there's kind of a different feeling. One's like, the only way I can like kind of relate it is like, one's like sneaking out of bed at night, right? And then the other is like just going to sleep and having the best dream, I guess. Yeah. Does that make sense? That's a little out there, I feel like.
No,
but,
definitely. That makes total sense.
It's a different kind of thrill.
Right. Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool that you're getting your hands in, more than one thing and kind of rounding out your experience. And yeah.
And I was going to say, once we have everything kind of more facilitated, we'll definitely have to get William Strength products on your website as well.
Yeah, man. Oh, definitely. Absolutely. That's the reason they're not on there now. Because I can't point
because there's no way. There's no. Yeah, you can't just give out an email.
Go buy the signature bench.
Yeah. Here's a phone number.
Or email.
Yeah. Just doing business by fortune cookie basically is kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. Well, for anybody who's listening now that maybe isn't too familiar with Williams, I know that you're a large part of your audience obviously is, but if anybody's out there that's like on my side that maybe isn't too familiar with Williams, I'd definitely encourage them to check you guys out because I think you guys are doing some of the coolest stuff out there. And, your name may be, at least in this realm, a little bit underrated, but I would say that your equipment is, like you said, near the top or at the top relative to, some of the big competitors out there.
The marketing term is undeniable. Again, we are constantly hammering that home. Yeah. I would say, just to kind of plug everything in, if you guys are interested in checking out the William Strength equipment, check us out on Instagram. That'll probably be the most up-to-date platform where you can see all the experimental stuff that we're doing. We'll just keep posting stuff on there. And if you guys like anything, just, DM us. That's kind of the only, that's eventually we'll have everything built out. But for now, that's kind of how you have to do business with us.
I'm curious, I would love to know how much business you guys have done through DMs over the last couple of years.
A ton.
A lot.
To the point where it got to the point where one person's job was basically just managing all the business that we got from that end. Yeah. And again, the complicated stuff, the nice thing that we're learning is that when you have a product already built out on a website, they can't ask, but can you do this for this? So we still get a lot of those all the time. And, we're all about custom work, but y'all ask for some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. We're a bougie crew.
Yeah.
No doubt.
100%.
No doubt. Well, yeah, man, I'm definitely have to get some more Williams stuff too. I'm loving this cart. I'm excited for people to see it. And it's going to be the sort of centerpiece for my video content going forward. And
again, the cool part about us is that this is kind of a first stab, right? As we experiment more and more, there's going to be a lot of custom stuff that we built out. Probably for you, that's experimental more than anything else. Yeah. That's just how it's always been. So, yeah I'm excited to do that. Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, perfect.
That was fun.
Yeah, I know. I loved it. Yeah.